I can't let it interfere with the plans that I have for your life. So therefore, even though I had the best man, even though Sherwood, oh man, what was his last name? Anderson? He would have taken care of me. He would have loved my children. He was a working man. I would have had the best life with him. But because it was not in my destiny to be with him and his destiny to interfere with my destiny, God had to take him out of the world. Now, it's hard to explain, and anybody that's not in the spiritual realm, anybody that has not lived the life like I have lived it or encountered any type of thing or way of life that I have encountered, they would never understand me when I say God had to take Sherwood out of my life, out of the world. He left this world. A bullet to his head. Because God said, I'm so sorry, but you cannot take the servant that I have. She don't even know that I have a job for her. But she's willing to do what I want her to do. But she's not even there yet. So I have a lot of work on her I got to do. And if you're in the picture, you're going to interfere. Do you not see how God loves us? And it may seem cruel, and people may say, no, God ain't did that. Or you talking about you lying on God. God didn't take that man out. You don't have to understand, because this was my life. So this is the story time that I'm telling. This is my life. And I see what God had planned for me now, but I didn't see it then. And even in my sin, even in my fornication and adultery, I still was trying to do the right thing. I'm pregnant, Lord. I'm not having no more babies, which is not like I had a lot. But I'm not going to have another child unless I have a husband with me. Now, I'm already married. I don't know where my husband is. Have no idea what part of California he's in. Not even worrying about it, but always in the back of my mind, in the back of my head, I always say and cry to God, where's my husband, Lord? Where's this man that I'm supposed to take care of? Where's this man I'm supposed to be a helpmate to? Why am I going through all of this by myself? Why I got to raise these 4 children by myself? Why? But God was sitting there and he was listening to my prayer. And even though Sherwood was a good man, even though he was taking care of me, even though he loved all of my children, but in order for us to get into the shelter, he had to be the father of one of my children. So we was working on getting her name changed so that his name could get on the birth certificate. Yes, we was gonna go down and pay for it. He had done told me, we had done decided we was going down. We had an appointment with whoever that was. I don't know whether it was welfare or whoever it was. We had an appointment with that person to come back on Tuesday with the paperwork. And that person will give us the okay for us to be together as a family. And it never happened. He was shot dead in his house. And in his head. Him and his sister was shot in the head and killed by people that came up in the house. And I was pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant. Had no idea I was 3 months pregnant. Knew I was pregnant, but had no idea. So 3 months pregnant with him, which I think he didn't really know. No, he didn't really know because I didn't realize I was pregnant until 3 months, until, let me see. Yeah, I was 3 months pregnant. So he died right after I found out. So the 3 months I was with him, but he knew I knew. Now I don't ask me because right now I don't want to get into my brain to find out why I didn't notice we were missing cycle or something. That was new to me. But anyway, I lost the child. 3 days after he died, I lost the child. I had a miscarriage. The child separated itself from me. Lord, and it was a grieving moment for me. But I was in shock. That's when I realized I loved him. And I was in my shelter room blaming God and asking God why. Why? You knew this man was going to take care of me. You knew this man was going to look after me. You know how much I love kids. I vowed that I would have no more abortions. Any child that I conceive, I was going to keep. And why is this happening to me? Why did you let this happen to me? I don't know where my husband is. And all the stuff that I went through with my husband, I don't even want to be back with him. I was just going in. I was just telling God everything. I stayed in my shelter room for a year. No, I mean, I came out or whatever, but I didn't interact with nobody. I kept my kids in the house, in the room. I was neglecting them, and when I say neglecting them, I was doing the normal stuff. I was feeding them and stuff like that, but I was still neglecting them, to be honest. I was still neglecting them. So y'all can just take neglect however y'all want to take it. Take it any way you want. I'm not here to justify my deeds. I'm not here to explain my deeds. I'm just here to tell a story. And it became by watching this movie called Overcomer, with a young girl and her father and her grandmother told her father was dead and etc. But the father's alive. Don't know how long he's going to be alive because he has diabetes, and diabetes done took his eyes, and now he's saying that according to the movie that the diabetes what is it? The diabetic, what is it again? Diabetes is taking his legs and his kidney. So, but my whole point of saying that is to say this: God was looking out for me. Now, just like I said, you may not understand when I say that God took this man out. God allowed this man to be killed to save me. Now, I don't know. As far as my natural eye could see, I consider him to be the best man for me. He loved me. He cared for me. He loved my children. He worked. He gave me his paycheck. He cooked for me. But we had our habits. He drank. I drank. He smoked cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes. And he smoked weed. I didn't too much smoke that. But I could be influenced with it because I would smoke every now and then with him. So I was actually on a path that God did not want me to be on. But I was willing to stay on it for the sake of the unborn child and for the sake of my reputation. Not so much thinking about God. Not to say I forgot about him, but I had even said to God, Lord, if I get pregnant again, I'm marrying that person. I don't know where Tracy is, so I'm not going to worry my little head over it. But if I get pregnant again, I'm going to marry this man. And that was my intention. But God said, no, you're not. Because your life don't belong to you. I'm the one that's in charge of your life. Your life has been dedicated to me. Now, I don't know whether I had a Christian or not when I was a child. But my life was dedicated through the prayers of Bishop Mingo and Mother Wilson, which my grandmother and my aunt. So anywhere I went in life, there was only a few yards I can go before God would touch me. And I would have to step back in that lane. So the Lord allowed death to come and take him to spare my life. Now, nobody could understand it. I couldn't even understand it. But God had to break it down to me a year or so after. His name was Sherwood. Sherwood died. He even had the weirdest name, Sherwood. Never heard that name after that. Nobody I ever met looked like him or has his name. When he died, everybody I saw looked like him. Now, I don't even see nobody. Very seldom I run across somebody that say, wow, that look like Sherwood. And that is because God has removed that memory. I had a dream. I used to dream about him all the time. The last dream I had about him, he was by the train station, and I saw him, and I was running to meet him, and he was waving bye to me. And I'm running, and I'm crying in the dream. I'm like, no, don't leave me, wait for me. And he just stood there, waving. And I'm running towards him, but I'm not getting no closer. And that was the last dream I had about him. Because for years, I dreamt about him and thought about him and heard his voice, especially after he died. I would hear him calling me. Oh, Sharon. I would hear him calling me. He was the nicest guy. But it wasn't what God wanted. What's that scripture? I know the thoughts that I have of you. Hey, Siri. Where's the scripture where God said, I know the thoughts that I have of you?
I found this on the web.
Okay, so here it goes. And make sure it's KJV. That's exactly how it was. Yeah, this thing. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord. Thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So that's what it was. Even though I was dating him, and it's like I said, so many opportunities came for us to separate. This is why God had to do it. God had to separate us because the opportunities arise where I literally kicked the man out of my house. And because of the kind of heart that I have, I would let him come back in. We would get in arguments for whatever reason. Not no big blown dollar arguments because we never really fought. That was my issues and my demons that I had, that I would have a lot of arguments with him. But we would separate and he will come right back. 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, he'll come in the house. He'll ring my bell. I go down. He got a pot of food or something. He's like, he would say, Sharon, I cooked some food. I brought some food. One time he came, he said, my mother made some spaghetti and I took the whole pot. I would laugh. If I was mad with him, I couldn't do nothing but hug him and kiss him. He said, I gotta look out for my honey. He would call me, sweetie. He said, I have to look out for my sweetie. And he had a way of blinking his eye at me. Only he could do it. Only he could do it, because ain't nobody else I encountered. Well, I didn't have no relationship with really anybody after him. And if it was like years later. But anyway, he was good, but God had to say, just like it say, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, say the Lord, and it's thoughts of peace and not of evil. See, God had good thoughts about me due to the fact, not only because of Bishop and Mother Wilson, but because of the person that I became. See, remember, we are born, just like people said, like that person said in the video that I uploaded, stating that, oh, God, we're made in his image, and God would not create something that is unpure and have flaws and stuff like that. But that's not true. He only created, just like I had said, he talking about myself. I can use myself as an example. He created me in his spiritual image, but who I become is my choice. What I become is the choices that I made. So, based on the things that I was taught and the biblical aspect that was presented to me, I took those things in. I kept them. And I kept them in the back of my mind, and I hid them in my heart. And as I began growing into a young lady and a woman and etc., I kept those things and I started applying them to my life. So that's why when me and Sherwood would get in arguments and I would kick him out, or he would say things that hurt me or whatever, and I would say things to hurt him, and he would get mad and walk out or whatever, we will always come back together because of our hearts. Now, our hearts entwined together, but the spirits was not right. Because even though I was a sinner, and even though he was a sinner, the fact still remains that God's hand was on me and not on him. That's where it becomes, we are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. That does not only apply to us becoming saved, that applies also to those that God has chose. So when we go out and preach the gospel to every creature, whom God has chosen is going to come in. So we have to allow God to draw those people, those individuals that are not interested, that are not, don't want to hear nothing, that have not and may not ever decide to come to Christ. You see what I'm saying? That's where the scripture in his word says he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So he's going to show his mercy towards everybody, because his mercy endure forever. But that doesn't mean he's going to overlook sin and allow you to come into his heaven or draw everybody in the world so that they can live with him. No, he ain't got mentions for everybody. He got mentions for the chosen few. Because he know everybody ain't coming in. But he has chosen. That's what the Bible is written for those chosen people. And then there are individual verses and chapters and scriptures and passages in the Bible that is directed to the sinner man. The day you hear my voice, harden not your heart. That's not for the saved no more. Because the saved heard the voice, didn't harden their heart, and came in and gave their life to him. But that is for the sinner man. Walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That's not for the sinner. That's for the saved person, because they can't walk in the spirit. They don't know how to walk in the spirit. So that's where it comes to say, study to show yourself approval unto God, a workman not needeth to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I know I probably left out something, right? Right? I know I left out something. So let me just find it so I can quote it right. Mm. Hey Siri, where's the scripture that says, study to show thyself approval?
Okay, I found this on the web for
2 Timothy 2 and 15. Okay, let's go back into 2 Timothy 2 and 15. The last scripture was Jeremiah 29 and 11. Second Timothy, did I say 2 and 15? Is that what I said? Let me see. 2 Timothy, let's see, book with 2 Timothy 2. Let's see if it's 15. Yeah, study to shew thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So I did say it right. Okay, so that's the deal. He had his hands on me. And if he is tugging at you and has been tugging at you for years, that means you're chosen. So give in. Give in. Give in. And don't think it's strange how when God protects you and take people out of your life, don't think it's strange. Remove you from certain people. You hanging out with these crowd of people, and as soon as you leave and go home, you hear about a shootout took place, or somebody got robbed, or they drink was spiked, and you had just left. Think it not strange. God is drawing you. So come on in. So this story time will be entitled How God took the life of my ex-boyfriend. People ain't gonna believe that, but it's the truth. God showed me the dream. Let me tell you the dream I had. I woke up this particular morning in a sweat, crying. And Sherwood woke up beside me and was hugging me. And he was like, "Is you all right? Baby, you all right? You okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." He said, "What happened?" So I was like this. He said, "You had a dream?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Tell me the dream." He said, "Ooh, yeah, tell me the dream. Because your dreams is prophecy. You dream, things happen." And I'm crying more when he say that because the dream was about him. And let me just throw this in right quick. The reason why he said that, because I woke up the same way one morning prior to this time, had a dream about him being in the car. And the car was going so fast that the car got in an accident. I think I may have it in my dream videos or audios. But I can't really remember right now what fully happened in the dream. But I know that, okay, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. 1 second, let me finish this. I can't remember right now what fully happened to him. I mean, in the dream. But I know that whoever was in the car got killed. The car was going so fast, spinning around. It was spinning like this, spinning. And I believe I was in the car, right? But anyway, that was probably the second dream. But anyway, so I woke, and this was before Thanksgiving. And I woke up telling him that dream. And he told me, no, I told him, I said, well, honey, just make sure you don't get no car. He said, I'm sure enough not, and you better not get no car. I said, I'm not. I said, who car I'm getting in? Right. He said, well, you go to church and stuff like that. I said, nah. But the person that got into the accident was his brother. His brother he came, okay, Sherwood came maybe a few weeks later to the house, and he was like, Sharon. No, he called me Sharon. Sharon. I was like, what's up? And he had this type of weird sound in his voice. And I was like, what happened? So he sat down and he was just shaking his. He had the beautifulest eyes. He had hazel eyes, brown hazel, like they was like you could see right through them. And so he was sitting there, and because of how his eyes was, they gloss up. You see the tears like coming, right? And I could see it, and I walked over to him, and I sat on his lap, and I hugged him, and I was like massaging his back, rubbing his back and stuff. I said, go ahead, tell me. I said, what happened? He said, Sharon, it's been a long time since I've been called Sharon. He said, your dream. I said, which dream? Because I had told him different dreams, but I had 2 dreams of a car accident. He said, your dream happened. He said, that was my brother. I said, what happened? So I knew his brothers. Okay, so he said that his brother had been saving up for years to redo his car. And he had just got the car back. Not for some years, but for some years he'd been saving up. That year was the year he saved up enough to get what he wanted in his cars. And those was like, I don't know, those from the 70s and the 80s and probably the 60s. If y'all remember, people used to redo their cars and put the speakers in the back part of the car. So I guess the speakers would be in the trunk, but the sound will come through like the back of the car, inside the car. And he redid the frame and all of that. Got the best speakers, etc. in there. And he went and picked up the car. This is during Thanksgiving, probably the day before Thanksgiving. And he was driving along, whether it was a highway or the street. He driving along, and he got the music up so loud that he did not hear the fire truck. And the fire truck sound was coming, and he didn't hear the fire truck sound. And he went in the intersection as the fire truck was coming, and the fire truck hit him full speed. Now, we all know how fast fire trucks is going, especially if it's in their lane. Hit him so fast that the impact pinned him in the car. So that's where the fastness was. Remember I was saying that in the dream, the car was spinning and going real fast? He wasn't driving fast. It was the truck that hit him. And it pinned him in the car. The fire truck, I don't know whether the fire truck stopped. I can't remember the story now. But they had to call certain people to cut him out. And he was dead. He was dead on impact. So after a few weeks, I think, because the car was in investigation and all this other stuff, and so they couldn't really do nothing with the car, meaning Sherwood, the brother. They wasn't giving them the car until they finished with it, right? Whatever they had to do. You know how it is when the scene of a crime. So they finally gave it back to them, and when he got it back, he took me because him and his brothers were the owners of their father's automotive. Is that what you call it? Where you go get your cars fixed. So they was auto mechanics, and their father owned the automotive shop, and they had it. So the car got towed are taken to their territory, since they was car and mechanic people. And he took me and let me see that car. And that car was like a toy car that you would just take and step on it, and it just squeeze it. There was no way, looking at it, that that person could have survived, because the front of the car was in the driver's seat, the back of the car was in the driver's seat, the side of the car was in the driver's seat, right? The passenger side was in the driver's seat, so there was no way he survived, and he didn't. And so now, this particular morning that I woke up crying. And when he looked at me, said, "You had another dream?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Wait a minute, let me go get me a cigarette. Let me go get me my bed, all this other stuff." So we was in the bed, and we sitting up in the bed, and he smoking his cigarette, and he give it to me. You know how that is with your two lovers. You know, you pass the cigarette back and forth. So I took the cigarette. I took me a smoke, and then I gave him back the cigarette. And he said, "All right, go ahead. I'm ready." So then he asked the question I was dreading to answer. He said, "Who was in the dream? Did you get to see who was in the dream?" And I was like, "Yep." He said, "Who was in the dream?" Not that I know him. And I was down like this. And when he said, "Not that I know him," I looked up at him. He said, "It was about me?" He said, "Let me take another puff. Let me take another drink." He said, "Okay, Sharon." He said, "Because the way you woke up, it must have was bad." He said, "All right, Sharon, tell me what it was." So I told him, now the dream is like this, as follows. Me and him was in a car, right? Whether or not it was his car, I don't know to this day. But we was in this car. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and he was in the driver's seat. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm looking at him. We're having a conversation in the dream. Next thing you know, I see this thing comes down from out of the sky, coming down from the top of him. Now, we all know that cars got roofs. So it came through. Now, I'm not hearing it like tearing its way through. I'm just sitting there, and I happen to see the thing coming down. So I'm like this. And now I'm looking at him. And this thing comes down on his head and presses him. And while it's on his head, he's going down like this. He's just like being squashed down, all the way down to nothing. And I'm like this in the dream. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't say nothing. I couldn't even cry in the dream. You know, first response in real life would be, "Oh my God, move!" Try to move him. All I could do was sit in the dream and go like that. And it was one of those things that's used to crunch cars up, that he used in his job. And I was telling him that, and he was like, "What?" He said, "Well, did I wake up? What happened?" I said, I woke up after the thing went all the way down and squashed you in the seat. And I'm looking at it down, going down like this, looking, following as it's going down and pushing you down and crushing you down. And then I wakes up. He said, "Oh my goodness." He said, "What you think that is?" I said, "I don't know." And it wasn't, I'm going to say maybe it wasn't a year. After I had the dream, eviction notice came to me. It was time for me to move. And I went and moved into the shelter. Or I stayed in the shelters. The shelter should have been my second home, you know. Oh, I got no place to go. Let me go to the shelter. I'll get me a room for me and my kids. That should have been my second home, right? Because I was always in the shelter, always getting evicted, everything. So that process started. And I had done left and went. I was in a shelter in a tier 2. Was it a tier 2? No, it was a tier 1. And that was with a room. We had a room, had all my kids in one room. We had to share the bathroom, etc. So I would go to my grandmother's house to wash, or go wherever I'm going to wash, to Pearl House or however it is. But the Lord took me. See, that's what I say. I didn't understand it. But a year or so later, I was sitting down in my apartment, and the Lord began to minister to me, piece by piece, the segment of me and Sherwood's life. Right? And he had to prepare me. Right? He had to tell me that, not prepare me, because I already went through it. But he had to tell me and explain things to me and get me to understand him and his love. Because for a year of those times, so a year after he died, I was blaming God. I was mad with God. I didn't want to be bothered with nobody. I stayed in my hotel with no hotel. I stayed in the shelter's room, just like I said, for a year. And I didn't interact with nobody. Every time they would come to the door, now, for those who was in shelters, you have a caseworker, a case manager, whatever they call it, come to your room and check up on you or make sure you do this and do that. Every time they would come, I would have the kids say, okay, she coming down. She coming down. She not ready. And she coming down. And I don't know, for some reason, they didn't enforce themselves on me. Like, like like the shelters are today. When I went into the shelter in 2018, they made sure they came to the room to make sure I went. If I didn't make it, and it wasn't purposely, but if I didn't make it, there was a penalty or something would happen to make sure I didn't do it again. But back then, people wasn't really into your life. You just was there. They was there. They was making their money. They was finding your place. You get out of there. And it also was a place out here in Queens. It was called the Castle. So I don't even know where the Castle is. That's what we called them, the Castle. But anyway, so I didn't want to be bothered with nobody, and these caseworkers did not bother me, right? Until one day, they came, and the lady went and got the key, or got the person that had the key, and they came in the house. And when they came in the house, they found me in the bathroom. I wasn't killing myself or nothing. I was in the bathroom in the dark, and I was telling them to go away and all that. And they sent my daughter, Tandra, and she was saying, you can't turn the child away. But she was saying, Mommy, open the door. Can I come in? Mommy, Mommy. So I let her in, and when I opened up the door, the worker was there. And they realized then that something was wrong, so they wouldn't leave me by myself. I mean, I wasn't suicide. It never came to me to kill myself. Never came to me. But I just wanted to be myself. Whenever I get depressed, I would become inverted. I would stay into myself. And unless you know that type of symptom and you're able to help, nobody won't mess with you. Nobody don't bother you. They leave you just like that. That's why, sadly to say, a lot of people take their lives because people don't enforce their love. And they just automatically go by people saying, oh, I'm all right. And when they really not all right, you got to really pay attention to them symptoms and pay attention to how these children is acting, how these adults are acting. And once people start staying to themselves and not want to be bothered, you got to watch that. I don't play that with my kids. People in my household, down to my youngest grandchild, who is 7. If my big 31-year-old child or 35-year-old child is acting kind of strange, staying in their room too much, I go knock on the door. You in there? Yeah. I'm coming in. You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, I just want to make sure. Because I ain't been seeing you in the house for a week. So what you doing in that room? Nothing. They just stay in the room. That's how it is. With me, I can stay in the room, but eventually I got to get out. I got to check the house. I got to check the rooms, check my husband, check the kids, check the dog, because we do got a dogs, check the cat, check the refrigerator. I got to check something. I just can't just stay in my room and don't interact. So when they noticed that had happened and I was like that, they interact with me a lot. They made me get out the room. They would come up and get me. They would make me come downstairs. One of the ladies made me work in the office with her. because she found out what was going on. Because after he died, Sherwood died in 93. My father died in 94. And my grandmother died in 95. So, right before my grandmother died, I found my apartment. But my father died, if I'm correct, a few months before, or should I say a year before I got in my own place. Yes. So when no yeah, when he died, I got his money. I found the policy with my name on it as beneficiary, and it was like $15,000. So I had to prove it to, dang, what was the name of it? It was some insurance that the city people is in. So I had to show them the death certificate and all that stuff. I had to send them my ID. I had to send them a lot of things to prove who I was. And I had to show them my marriage certificate, but I couldn't find my marriage certificate. So I can't remember. I think at that time my social security card had both my names on it. It had Wilson Jordan on it. So that helped to prove my identity, because you can't get your social security card unless you got proof of who you are. So they released the checks. They were sending the checks to me. But anyway, not to talk about this thing about the checks, about the money. This is about how God took care of me and loved me enough, cared about me. Unfortunately, people that came in contact with me, he that came in contact with me had to come deceased. And thinking about it now that I'm saying it out loud, I wonder why God didn't just let him meet somebody else and get saved. But even with me saying that, I already got the answer. The Lord is telling me that wouldn't have worked because the dude really loved me. Really loved me. And he had said to me I had already told him before he died, I had already told him that I was going back to church. I said, I'm going back to church. I'm going to give my life to God. He said, what does that mean? I said, that means I'm going to get saved. And it was just so crazy that all of a sudden, I just started feeling sad and lonely and urgent and aching for God, just wanting him. God was actually separating me from him because I was becoming uninterested in him. And it was so crazy. And he even said it. He would say to me, he said, you don't love me no more? I'd be like, yeah. He said, I don't know. It's just something different about you. And I noticed it too, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And even though I was trying to move away from him and disconnect myself from him, he kept himself connected. Even to the point where when they put me in another shelter, all the way on the other side from where he lived at. It was still in Queens, because that side we was living at, we was living on Jamaica side, and I was moved all the way over to Hillside side. So he still was coming to visit me. He would come and visit me, and he would stay with me, and we would he couldn't come in the shelter, so there was a park across there, and we would go over to the park, and he would visit me and stay with me. The last night that he was with me, he said to me that he brought me a bag. He brought a bag of weed to me. I guess it's all right for me to say that. And he wanted me to hold it, because he knew. He said, here, Sharon. And he handed me the bag of weed. I said, what you giving me that for? I was smoking. Oh, yeah, he didn't know I was pregnant. Yeah, he knew I was pregnant. That was the purpose of doing what we was doing, because he was supposed to come. We was trying to get him to come and stay with me in the shelter since I was pregnant by him. Right. So, yeah. So now with that being said, he that last night, he came, gave me the bag of weed and told me to hold it for him. He said, because if I take it, I'm going to smoke it up, Shannon. And I know you don't smoke, so I trust you with it. If I leave it in the house, Clara and them going to find it and all this other stuff. And he brought me, at that time I was drinking man oh man or Chivas wine, right? So he went and got it, but I was uninterested in drinking. I was not really wanting to drink. But he brought it for me, and he said to me, this is the last thing he said to me. He said, Sharon, he said, I love you. He said, I'm going to marry you. We're going to be together forever. I'm not going nowhere. He said, I found that out. And so I'm looking at him, and just like I said, I wasn't really interested in it. I had that feeling like, okay, get up, go. I don't want to be bothered. You love me, good. Hip hip hooray. I don't care. That's the attitude I had, and it just came suddenly. Woke up one morning and I just was uninterested in him. And I was like, yeah, okay, all right. And then he said, no, 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 no. He grabbed my hand. He said, no, no, no. I want you to hear what I'm saying. I really love you. He said, because I tried to cheat on you. And then there was some guy that was close friends to him that I knew. And he mentioned the person's name. I can't remember the name now. He said the person's name. We went to a hotel with these girls. And I guess he thought that I was going to be mad. And he didn't come to me saying, I got to tell you something, please don't be mad. He just went out. That's the type of relationship we had. We just told each other how we felt, whatever was going on, we just told it. And we either accepted or didn't accept it. We didn't lie to one another, nothing. Because when he lied to me about something, that's when he got kicked out the house. So when we got back together, he said, I'll never lie to you. I said, okay. So he was always truthful. And same way with me. That's my nature anyway. So he never really had problems with me telling lies. So he came right out and he said that him and this guy had some girls. They went to a hotel. He said, I had to do that. He said, I had to do that to find out whether or not I really loved you. So I'm like, really? Okay. And to each his own. So sure enough, he was telling me, he said, but I couldn't do nothing. They was all on to me. She was all on to me. And, kissing me and all this other stuff. But I wasn't into that. All I could do was think about you. So I asked a big question. I said, did you sex her? He said, no. No, I didn't sex her. She wanted to, but I couldn't do it. I threw her off of me and I left. And I went home. I said, okay. He said everybody was mad, but I don't care. And there was something about him. And I guess that's probably what made me love him even more. And I loved him a little bit more then, at that time when he was telling me that. There was something about his seriousness because of his eyes. His eyes portrayed his feelings. So whenever he was telling the truth, his eyes would be such a solid brown with speckles in it, with freckles in it. So that's how his eyes was looking. And he was looking at me and he was like, I can't cheat on you. You're all to me. You're my everything. You who I want. I wanna have this baby by you and everything. It touched me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my God, blah blah blah. Blah 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 blah. And it was time to go. I had a curfew. I said, all right, we gotta go. He said, okay. He said, I'm gonna see you tomorrow, early morning. I'm gonna be here. He said, I'm gonna come and pick you up, and we gonna hang out together. I think that because we were supposed to go back to the lady on a Tuesday. So that was a Friday. So he was talking about Saturday. And he picked me. I went to get up and he picked me up and carried me on his back across the park. Now he really never did that. We would play, he would pick me up in the house and put me on the bed, throw me in the bed, stuff like that. But he never actually carried me on the outside, right? And each time I was slayed, he said, no, no, no. He said, don't slide down off his back. He said, don't let your feet touch the ground. No, Sharon. And he would pick me back up. It was like he was protecting me from something. He didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what he was doing. But I kept saying to myself, why he don't want me to touch my feet to touch the ground? He said, no, no, don't. And he carried me all the way down. It was a hill. He carried me out the park, down the hill, across the street, because the shelter I was staying in was across the street from the park we was in. He carried me all the way across the street and put me down on the steps of that building. He said, that's good. You didn't touch that. He said, now you go in there and you go to sleep, and I'm on my way home. I ain't stopping nowhere and going nowhere. And he said, I know the same guy telling me that they did their little dirty work with. I know such and such is going to ask me to take a beer with them. And it was like he knew, like he knew exactly what was going to happen, but he didn't. Because just what he said, the people that stopped him and told him to come have a beer with him is the people that tried to stop him. He said, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going home. And as soon as I get home, I'm going to call you. And I'm going to let you know I'm home. That was a normal thing for him. But this was just like it was more intense. It was like, I can't stop no more. It was like his love was so genuine to him. And he had to show it to me. And him going straight home and not stopping was his way of showing me he felt. So he went. So therefore, so now, okay, I'm just looking at a comment I got from somebody from YouTube on one of my videos. Okay, so let me hurry up. I've been talking 51 minutes. I didn't expect the story time to be this long. So, he went on back to the house, and sure enough, the people that he said would stop him from going in, that wanted him to drink with them, was trying to stop him, but he didn't. He went in the house. And when he went in the house, he was in there no time when the people walked in and shot him in the head. So everybody said, including me, and that's the reason why I was feeling so guilty. That's why I was closing myself in the rooms. Didn't want to be bothered with nobody. And that's why I was, in a sense, blaming God. Because I was saying, God, you knew this was going to happen. Why didn't you have me stop him? So I blame myself for years. That whole year I blamed myself. And then afterwards I still blamed myself. It was God that helped me get through it. So we when I found out what happened, I realized that I said to myself, I said, man, if I had kept him a little bit longer, he would have survived. Now, his mother probably would have died. So now his life saved his mother's life. His sisters that got shot and his brothers brother got shot, they saved their mother's life. Because the people that killed him, it wasn't gang related. The people that killed him is people that they knew. That's who it was. It wasn't gang related. But it was assassinate because one of the guys that shot him was one of the guys that was a part of the crew that came in to kill him, was the husband to one of the sisters, one of Sherwood's sisters. So that's another story. That will be entitled The Story Behind My Boyfriend Assassination, because that's what it was. It was planned. That family was assassinated. And they was planning on killing up everybody in the house, as well as setting the house on fire, because they found cocktails. For those who know what cocktails is, I don't mean the one you drink. They had them all planted around the house. So they was going to kill everybody in the house, and then they was going to burn the house down. That was the plans. But unfortunately, and should I say fortunately, right? Unfortunately is that the people that was in the house, which was my ex-boyfriend and his sisters, they got shot up and killed. One of the sisters survived, and one of the brothers survived. But him and his other sister died with him. They had a 2-casket funeral. So this is where I say that this was all in God's plan. That dream that I had about the thing coming from, this is the revelation that God gave me about the dream, because I didn't know the meaning of the dream. as time went on and I got deeper into the Lord and God started ministering to me and giving me the gift of interpretation to be able to interpret dreams, but only at His time, not my time. He told me, let me see that the interpretation of the dream that I had was that it was time for him to go. He had to be disconnected from me. That was the reason why I was taken all the way on the other side of Queens. That was the reason why I was beginning to disconnect spiritually with him, because I was attached to him. That I my spirituality was being disconnected from him, and he felt it. So he had to go and mess around with somebody to see if he can get disconnected from me. But he realized that that wasn't happening. But he had to stay connected to me in order for what to happen, right? Because just like I said, God could have easily changed his mind, took his love from me, and he could have went on about his business. But because he wanted to serve God, now who's to say? He may go to heaven. God may have allowed him to enter into heaven. I don't know. Right? But I can't say that, because in the reality of it, I would not say that. I would allegedly say that, but I would not say that as a fact, because sin cannot enter into heaven. So now, God had to release him from me and allow me to release myself from him so that I wouldn't get on the wrong lane. I wouldn't forget him. It was all about forgetting God. That's what it was all about. So the thing that came down on his head that I said that was in the dream, that represented that it came from God. God had something to do with his death. Me being in the car, going like that, it was two revelations to that. The first revelation is just what it was, me. I couldn't do nothing. So me seeing it is me hearing about it, because I couldn't do nothing, because I was too far away. And even if I had been in the house when he came, God forbid, how it would have turned out if he had been in my house and word would have came to him that they in his house getting ready to shoot up stuff, or somebody would have came and said, yo, Sherwood, there's some guys with some masters that just went up in your house. And he would have ran out, I would have ran down, we would have ran over. Only God knows what would happen. We could have wound up getting shot anyway. And then that could have been my life, because I could have got shot and got killed. And not to say that his life wasn't important, but there was steps that he had to go through in order to get to where he needed to be if he was going to get saved. So I was the first step to that life. And because of how my life was planned out and mapped out, and being already married, we could not connect. I couldn't go and get married to him again. I couldn't have another child, even though the father was there. But that would have been 2 children from another man. So I would have had 5 children and 3 different fathers. That wouldn't have looked right for me as an evangelist. Too many people don't know too much about Danielle. And people that don't know my life will not know that Danielle is not. I mean, they probably know now because I'm talking about it. But people that don't know that part of my life, they won't know unless I tell them. Right? And I ain't telling nothing. But anyway, so God said that he had to do that. Once I was in a place to understand what God was saying, God had to let me know I had to do that for you. Just like his son had to die and go through all them thorns and them beatings and them piercings, I had to go through. So he was telling me that my life would have been much worse than it is if I had went down that lane. So because I was determined to go down that lane, because I was determined to get this man to become a part of my life because I'm pregnant by him. I was determined to get my child Danielle's last name changed from Jordan to his last name. And I was determined to get him to follow me all the way if it had to be to the ends of the earth. But God said, I don't care nothing about your termination. Your life belongs to mine. So that's why he had to leave this world. Because God was looking out for me. And it's sad, but I can't question God's motives. I can't question God's actions. Because if he loves me, I love him back. So even though I loved the show, I wasn't in love with him. So God didn't allow me to fall in love with him. So a lot of things that I was doing because of the Bible. And I was thinking about my life ahead when I come back to the church. At least when I come back to the church, I'll be coming there with a husband. Even though I have 3 children, 3, 4, 5 children, and it may be from different fathers, at least there is a father in the household. So I won't be looking like something wrong with me. I'm running the streets picking up men. But God said, don't. I got this under control. So he got rid of him. Sad, but yet that's what he had to do. And you may not understand that I understand. You may not understand. It's okay. This is my life. And this is what God told me. And people can say, well, God is not like that. Well, you see God how you see him, and I see him as I know him. So with that being said, I'm going to end this because I'm getting hungry and I got to find me something to eat. And I do hope y'all see this through the end. If so, or if not, please like and subscribe to my channel if you like these story times. Even though they may be kind of long. But I really love all of y'all. And I pray God's blessings upon you. God bless you. Bye.